Alright, so what did we discuss in the previous class?
Discussed about sacrifice.
We discussed about sacrifice, yeah?
So the different kinds of sacrifice and why people do sacrifice. And who's the beneficiary? So the karmis sacrifice material possessions to gain more material possessions, so material
Sir, please
prosperity.
close the door. Just keep the door closed now. Lock it.
Yeah.
No, don't lock it. Somebody may want to come.
So the karmis in general, they sacrifice material possessions for gaining material prosperity. And we saw that Brahmavadis, they sacrifice their identity in view to merge into the Supreme Brahman. As well as the devotees sacrifice everything to please Krishna. So that saw that thing. And we saw also the grahasthas, the ashrams, all of them are designed so that everybody can get self-realized. So people who follow the ashram.
Anything else?
So how Vedas lead to Dharma, Artha, Kama and then Moksha. It's a slow path. And Bhakti is a faster elevator compared to.
Anything else?
In this Bhakti Yoga process, the devotee doesn't lose his identity, spiritual identity.
Yes. Is that a question or a statement?
No, I'm just telling the point.
Yes. Correct. Anything else? We didn't, yeah.
Not the D.
Today we are going to do that.
But last time also you mentioned not in D.
Not ND. Yeah. Okay. But we'll do that today. Alright. So let's go to the first verse for today. So today we are going to end the chapter, fourth chapter. So we'll go from 4.34 to 4.42. Okay. Okay. 34. This is one of the most important verses in the Bhagavad Gita. It's a key memory verse. It's probably the most quoted verse in Bhagavad Gita. Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti jnanam jnanina sthatam. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Adrian Prabhu?
The path of self-realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. The Bhagavatam 6.3.19 says, the path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master as like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction of a self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiring from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and then he sees the genuine when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiry are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind towards the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect.
So what are the points here?
If one satisfies one spiritual master, the person will advance in spiritual life
Yeah.
very quickly.
Three stages in
Pardon?
it's like the three different stages of approaching a spiritual master. One is inquiring and be submissive and render service unto the spiritual master.
Now please try to come on time. Okay.
Yes, Krishna is the original spiritual master, and one in disciplic succession can deliver the message as it is, without adulteration.
No one can spiritually realize manufacturing their own process, and this is why the importance is given that. But if you only read the books, you can't be spiritually realized. You need good spiritual good.
Achmate, try to come on time.
Guru can give spiritual knowledge because he has seen, he has realized it himself or herself. And that's why they can pass it. Otherwise, speculation.
So one should accept the spiritual master in full surrender and serve him like a menial servant. Only then the knowledge can flow.
Prabhuji, once we surrender to the spiritual master, we have to blindly follow him, isn't it, Prabhuji? Why does Prabhupada say here that both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned? I understand absurd inquiries need to be not to be done, but we should follow blindly, is it not? Or
No, we should not follow blindly. Following blindly, Prabhupada is using a metaphor there. Okay. When you follow blindly, then what happens is sometimes the spiritual master has a fall down. It can happen. See here. So, when the spiritual master falls down, a disciple should be able to discern that no longer is he representing Srila Prabhupada in the disciplic successions, and his messages are not in line with what Srila Prabhupada was propounding. Therefore, his lifestyle is no longer one of the ashram which he has adopted. So, in which case you can't just go on blindly following. No, whatever it is, he is my spiritual master. No, it's not. So, one has to take guidance at that time. We'll talk about it in more detail. Any other points?
You can do, there's no point, but I need your help in understanding this point. In this sloka, Krishna is mentioning about Jnani and Tattvadarshi. He's not mentioning the word Guru as such directly. He refers to Jnani and Tattvadarshi. So, just from a preaching point of view, how do we understand that we need a Guru and the Guru has to be in the discipline section? How do we understand that in this aspect?
Okay, the key word is Upadesh. We have to get Upadesh from Guru.
Sitting here.
Pardon?
So, Upadesh
Yeah.
is sitting here to the Jnani or Tattvadarshi.
Correct, yeah.
So, Jnani and Tattvadarshi, and we refrain saying that all Jnanis and Tattvadarshis, or all Gurus are Tattvadarshi and Jnani, or vice versa.
A person who knows the tattva can be a guru with regard to that tattva.
Okay.
There are tattva is of three types. What are the three types of tattva? Vadanti tat tattva vidas, tattvam yajnanam advayam, brahmeti paramatmeti, bhagavan iti shukrati. So tattva can be three types. The absolute truth is known in three features: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So of course, since we are following Bhakti Yoga, Srila Prabhupada is here talking about that Tattvadarshi who knows the Bhagavan feature of the Lord, who has realized the Bhagavan feature of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that we must take initiation from such a, initiation and knowledge from such a guru. Alright. Anything else?
So it says here, satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master
Yes.
is the secret to advancement in spiritual life. So one should serve him so that spiritual master is satisfied.
Okay. So in Bhagavad Gita 4.33, which is the last verse of the last class, it was mentioned that duty and sacrifice must be done in knowledge. Duty and sacrifice must not be done in ignorance. Where is Nagesh Prabhu gone suddenly? Okay. So duty and sacrifice must not be done blindly. Duty and sacrifice must be done in knowledge. Now the question is, if duty and sacrifice must be done in knowledge, how does one acquire that knowledge? That is how the earlier section is transitioning to this section. How does one acquire? So, how does one acquire? There are three components. Pardon? By approaching a guru. There are three components of approaching a guru. One is, we must inquire. We cannot say, oh, Guru Maharaj, how can I ask him any questions? No, not like that. We are meant to inquire. Even when His Holiness Bhakti Vishramba Madhav Maharaj comes, or His Grace Shankarshan Das Adhikari comes, they are always eager for questions. So they say, where is our question box? The more the questions, they say that the program is successful. So, the spiritual master wants inquiries like that. So even when His Holiness Burijan Prabhu does retreats, he gives enough time for question and answers. I have seen lots of questions people ask. He is answering all the time like that. So any spiritual master for that matter, Devamrit Swami, anyone you take, the food for the guru is questions. So there must be inquiry. Not only must be inquiry, but there must be submission, pranipat. That's very important. I don't know whether I mentioned in this class. I think I did. When I was in Toronto, one person's father, one devotee's father, the devotee had called Bhakti Brihad Mridanga Prabhu at that time. Now Bhakti Brihad Bhagavat Maharaj. He had come to their house, and the devotee had called him, but the devotee's father was little bit, like over smart types. What I mean. So he was half knowledge. So he used to, ask questions. But how can you say like this? Like that. He used to ask in that tone. But you are saying this. So, like that. In a very taunting manner, sarcastic manner, questions, right? And also sometimes being very aggressive. So that's not the way. That's not the way if someone really wants knowledge to flow. Because with knowledge also flows mercy. With instructions, mercy also flows. When the spiritual master gives an instruction, we get the ability to execute that instruction also, along with it. So that instruction is very important. Now this is not only true of our Diksha Guru. This is true of our Siksha Gurus also. There are two types of Guru, Diksha Guru and Siksha Guru. Diksha Guru is the Guru from whom we take initiation. But whoever teaches us Krishna consciousness, that person is Siksha Guru. So there can be many Siksha Gurus in our life. But there will be one Diksha Guru, or if the Diksha Guru falls, then the person can take reinitiation, which we will talk about. But at any point in time, one Diksha Guru. Right? So, and who is our Siksha Guru? Almost everyone. Prabhupada is our...
You, Prabhu.
Prabhupada is not me, but yeah, Prabhupada is our Parama Shiksha Guru, right? He is our Parama Shiksha Guru. He cannot be our Diksha Guru because he is not on this planet anymore. Of course, he is still there in spirit, blessing all of us, but in one sense he has wound up his pastimes, right? So Prabhupada can only be our Shiksha Guru. This is ISKCON's position, and this is the correct Shastra also, right? Srila Prabhupada cannot be our Diksha Guru. Anyone who says, today I am taken photograph, initiation from photograph of Srila Prabhupada, that is bogus philosophy. That is called as Ritvik philosophy, right? That is not accepted by us, right? So Srila Prabhupada is our Parama Shiksha Guru. However, yes, accepted that Srila Prabhupada is Parama Shiksha Guru, but at the end of the day, on a day-to-day basis, there are many people who give us direction in our spiritual life. Those persons have to be considered as our Shiksha Guru. Now, the good part is, we don't say, oh here, that blue shirt, that fellow, Shiksha Guru has come. Or that white shirt, Shiksha Guru has gone there. No, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that. Shiksha Guru can be anyone. For example, in terms of service, let us say, background services, Jagannath Vallabh Prabhu can be a Shiksha Guru for many of us. Because that is something which we are learning from his life. He may not be giving lecture to us, but by simply seeing him, we can learn what is humility, what is working in the background, So he can be our Shiksha Guru. So many people can be our Shiksha Gurus, right? In fact, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is an elaborate chapter of was it? Which Brahmana that is? Avanti Brahmana. Okay. In that particular section, he says what we can learn from the birds, what we can learn from the fish, what we can learn from the tree. Trinadapi Surichena Taroriva Sahishnuna. As tolerant as a tree. So even a tree can be a Shiksha Guru in that sense. Of course, on a more tangible level for us, Shiksha Guru are generally those people who are very much involved with us in our Krishna consciousness. Okay, they can be our counselor as well, like that, spiritual counselor and guide, like Bhakta Prabhu and Bhakti Manjari. They are counselors to so many devotees. Go to them, with their personal problems. So they are examples of Shiksha Guru. Anirudh Prabhu, Rachindra Prabhu themselves. We have such a wonderful temple president and first lady, right? Both of them, we can go to them many times. We go to them with issues and they help us. So like that, so many people are our Shiksha Gurus. The key point is, unless we do this pranipath, Shiksha will not flow. If we equate ourselves with the Shiksha Guru, then what happens? Does water flow at the same level? Water flows only from higher level to lower level. The moment we say, no, we are peers now, then Shiksha will not flow. Right? So, the more and more we feel that we are more fallen than any other devotee, we will be able to learn from every devotee to that extent. Just because we are sitting on the Vyasasana and giving class, if we start thinking, I am Shiksha Guru for everyone, okay, then what will happen? My learning will stop from there. Correct? Because now what I am putting myself here. So nobody can tell me anything then. Right? Everyone only says Haribol Prabhu, Haribol, that's all. Right? But that is dangerous for me if I sit here. Right? But in practical life, what happens? We are here, we need to assist some people who are here, but at the same time, we need to understand that there are people here. So it should flow like this. Like this. That is very important, continuously. If it's only happening this way, it's not happening here, we are not fulfilling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission of preaching. If we are only doing this, if we are not doing that, then we will get proud. Is it clear? Both are required. So every counselor should have a counselor, leading ultimately to spiritual master. And spiritual master has his counselor. Usually our spiritual masters also discuss with the most realized person in their group, like that. They also have, we may not know, but they have, like that. They will discuss on higher things, like that, with someone more advanced than them. Okay. So, but that process has to be there. Which means, now when will Shiksha flow? Shiksha will flow only when we have good relationship with devotees. If our relationships are not good, people will stop advising us. If we find that nobody is asking us how we are chanting, if we find that nobody is instructing us anything, nobody is able to tell us anything, that means there are two things. Either we are highly elevated or we are highly proud. Mostly it is the latter. So nobody can tell anything. Oh, Prabhu, tell this Prabhu not to serve properly. Prabhu, no Prabhu, I don't want to go near him. If you go and tell something, Prabhu, serve properly. I know how to. Don't tell me. I've been doing it since last 20 years. Don't tell me how to do. Okay, Haribol, that's all. Nobody can tell you anything like that. Because you are already senior devotee. Right? So it's important to become advanced. Seniority anyway will come with age. It's a natural process. So nothing great about being senior devotee. What is more important is, am I being an example to others? That is what actually means senior devotee. And we'll come to that. One of the criteria for spiritual master, age is not a criteria in this case. Alright. So there must be inquiry, there must be submission, and there must be service. That's very important. Okay. Only submission is not important. Okay. Haribol, Guru Maharaj, please accept Dandavats at your lotus feet on your appearance day. In this lifetime, may you always remain in my heart. All this is very fine. But at the end of the day, Guru Maharaj is saying, follow 4 regulative principles. Are we doing that? Chant attentively. Are we doing that? After that, saying all these things, oh, please accept dandavats at your lotus feet. May the dust of your feet always be in the water of my heart and all that. All that is very fine to speak, and nicely impress. At the end of the day, what do you do with the instruction? That is the question. If he is telling us something, okay, if he is telling us improve relationship with devotees, then obviously a devotee has to put effort towards that. If he is saying, have control over a tongue when you speak with devotees. Don't hurt devotees with your tongue and behavior. If I am not taking that instruction personally, there is no point. Spiritual master will give instructions, but not every instruction will be given to us personally. I spoke this many times before in the class. If spiritual master's instructions which are given in public are taken personally, it becomes a personal instruction. Even if the spiritual master sits within the four corners of a room and gives an instruction which we are not following anyway, then it is not a personal instruction anyway. Then we are thinking that it's for others he's telling. Sometimes it's happened, many times it's happened in the congregation. Spiritual master is telling, you are a brahmachari, you should not be looking at Mataji's like this. Then the person is sitting in the room, and then later on he is coming and telling, this is what is happening in our temple. People are looking at Mataji's. Prabhu, it was for you. That instruction was for you. Person is sitting inside the room, still the person is in hallucination that this instruction is not for me. It has happened. And you are shocked. You think, how come this person is not understanding? The spiritual master is directly telling him this instruction. Like that. So sometimes when the spiritual master is giving personally that instruction, if we don't take it personally, anyway it becomes general. But even if the spiritual master is speaking on the MP3 player and he is saying that Trinadapi Sunichana Taroriva Saishnuna, if we take it personally and apply in our life, that becomes personal instruction. Actually, there is no personal instruction that anybody needs. Prabhupada has given everything. There is no need of personal instruction. If we read Bhagavatam, if we take shelter of devotees who are all around us, there is no need of personal instruction. We can learn from each other. There is very, very exceptional cases when someone needs a personal instruction. Again, if we are intelligent enough to apply devotional principles as we hear it, we can ourselves apply. But yes, sometimes it becomes a little bit difficult to discern. Therefore, we then still go to a devotee and seek guidance. So there must be inquiry, there must be submission, and there must be service. Service means obeying the instructions of the spiritual master and doing something about it. If the spiritual master says, please assist me in my preaching mission, then if we sit and say, Prabhu, actually I am not qualified. I am not qualified like that. Then what will happen? Is that very good? In office, when we go for an interview, they are asking you, have you done Java? Even if we have not done Java, what do we say? Yeah. I have done. In the previous job, I was doing the same thing. Whatever we have, that time we don't say, Haribol, I am not qualified to, I have not done Java. Do we say like that? When it comes to this, how we are doing? When it comes to this, we are flexible. No? When it comes to spiritual master's instruction, where that humility is coming from? Prabhu, I am not qualified. What qualification you need? Qualification will come by obeying the instructions of spiritual master. So if he says preach, preach. Don't wait. Oh, someday I will become qualified. Then suddenly spiritual master will come. Now you are qualified. Last 5 trips you are not qualified. But I can see the effulgence on your face. Please go and preach now. He is not going to come and tell that. Okay? We have to understand, because we are preaching, we are not, doesn't mean that we are qualified. We will never be qualified in this lifetime. What to speak of this lifetime? In many lifetimes we may not be qualified. Therefore we should stop Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Because everybody is so humble. No. We have to understand that preaching is part of our purification. We preach for our purification. It is incidental that people become devotees. We preach for our purification. We cannot control anyone. I cannot say, please Prabhu, so many classes, you have to chant, otherwise they'll shoot you. I can't say like that. It is still your free will. You may come for 50 weeks and say that, Prabhu, I am not convinced Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. It may happen. Right? So, still it's our duty to give this message. Karmane vadikarasya mahaphaleshu prachana. We are not, the results are not in our hands, but the effort still must be done. And by doing that effort, whether anyone becomes a devotee or not, that is between them and Krishna. But we will become dear to our spiritual master and we will receive mercy. Right? Even from that aspect, we must start preaching. So the movement must spread, it must not stagnate. That was Prabhupada's order. Yes, Prabhu.
So one question, in the example like you gave, when we go to an interview, we say we know Java. So the thing is, we are lying there and we are taking responsibility which we can't handle. And we get stressful.
And then do we handle it or not?
We do handle and
Yes.
we get stresses for it.
Yes.
Same thing can happen in the, let's say, if we try to follow the same thing in Krishna consciousness and we take some responsibility which we are not expert in, saying, okay, I'll take it because somebody has instructed. Now we take the responsibility and then the mistakes will definitely happen. How do we take that part? Because the mistakes are happening and then some knowingly and unknowingly things will be done which shouldn't be done. But you realize later on that this was wrong. So is that an offense? Or
If we make mistakes in auditing, what do? In financial auditing?
Correct it.
Correct it. Learn from it. Don't do it again. Same process. Whatever we do in office, same thing. Here also. Correct it. Mistakes can happen in preaching for many reasons. So one has to analyze. Is it because I have not studied the Shastras enough? See, unless we start preaching, we will have no compelling reason to read Prabhupada's books, to study Prabhupada's books scrutinizingly. When you are sitting and then 100 people are sitting in front of you and throwing questions at you, at that time you are subjecting yourself to be in that situation. And when you subject yourself to be in that situation, you have no other choice but to read Srila Prabhupada's books very scrutinizingly and understand the philosophy carefully. Therefore, that point is valid. Yes, you subject yourself into that and then you will get the right amount of pressure to study the scriptures. Always if you are sitting and just hearing classes, then there is no motivation for us.
is there an immaturity part in this, trying this thing?
Is there
Immaturity
What?
in trying to follow the instruction which you just gave, that try to preach and then the faults will come out.
Yeah, try to preach, but obviously we cannot say, Prabhu, I will not read I don't have time to read Prabhupada's books, but I will try to preach. Because preaching is, no, not like that. We have to preach to the extent of our realization. But usually nobody is going to ask us to give an extempore class. How many times has someone approached us and said, can you give class? Still sometimes we get asked. But usually that situation, some devotees may be asked, but not every devotee is asked, give a class in next 5 minutes. No. We will have weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years of preparation. Isn't it? For example, what is a great difficulty in starting a SSR program? What is a great difficulty in that? All you have to tell people is what is the goal of life. In the first session, what do? You tell people what is the goal of life. Now you can conduct a nice session, and these sessions are already available on video. All you have to see is see the video and play it back. I remember once Kiran Prabhu, I went to his house. He was preparing for a class in the next week. He was supposed to give a class in Glen Huntley. All he was doing was playing back something which he had heard from someone before. And then he was saying that I am hearing that, so I can play it back. That's all. That's all we need to do. We don't need to be innovative. We don't need to create a new philosophy. We have to repeat the words of whatever has been spoken in the disciplic succession. That's all. Isn't it? So we have all the tools that are available. We have everything, all the assets required. We have to just hear the video recording or audio recording and just play it back. That's all. So it's very easy. But there has to be a desire. That is where most of us have a problem. Why? Because preaching is a commitment. But if we don't do that commitment in this lifetime, in which lifetime are you going to do? If we don't do that commitment when we have a proper job, when everything is going well in our life, then are we going to do it when we are not well? Are we thinking that after we become old we will start preaching? When our body doesn't cooperate? The time is now. In fact, the time was yesterday. It has already gone. At least now. Like that. So we'll have to be in a hurry to spread Prabhupada's movement. Because we never know when we will leave this body. Anyway, so there must be service. There must be inquiry, submission and service. Sri Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion gives 5 most potent items of bhakti. 5 most potent items. What are those items? The first one is taking shelter of a spiritual master. Sadhu Sang. Guru Pada Ashrayat. The first step. He says that is the first step in bhakti. Out of the 5 most potent items, the topmost is what? Guru Pada Ashrayat. Or Sadhu Sangha. What is the next one? Nama Kirtan. Nam Kirtan means chanting of the holy names. Then third is Bhagavad Shravan. Bhagavad Shravan means taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Fourth is Mathura Vas. Mathura Vas means residing in a holy place. And fifth item is Sri Murti Sevaya, which means deity worship. These are the 5 most potent items of bhakti in Kali Yuga. So we must check, are we doing all these things? If we are not doing any of this, we must try to include that as soon as possible. Mathura Vas doesn't mean you should take a flight and go to Mathura tomorrow, leaving your job. Mathura Vas means what? Any place where Lord Krishna is worshipped, that becomes Mathura Vas. If we do service in this temple, that is Mathura Vas. If we live in this temple, in our mind as well as in our body, though we are working outside, then that is Mathura Vas. Right? This is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.128, if you want reference. One should associate with devotees, chant the holy name of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, reside at Mathura, and worship the deity with faith and veneration. Worship the deity with faith and veneration. So initially we have photographs in our house, but later on, as we mature, then we will get permission to have Gaur Nitai deities. As we go further, we can have Radha Krishna deities like that in our house. By the instruction of spiritual master, then all this will happen. Initially we start with photographs. Initially we start with altar, sorry. Okay, at least Prabhupada is there. Then after that Radha Vallabha and all appear, and then like that. Okay, now what is the criteria for Guru Pada Ashram? Last week somebody was asking me, what is the criteria for how do we decide our spiritual master? Okay. So there are, sorry?
One was in succession.
Yes, the first criteria is that one must be under Sampradaya, disciplic succession. There are 4 Sampradayas, one starting from Brahma, the other starting from Lakshmi, the other starting from Kumaras, and other starting from Shiva. There are 4 Sampradayas. Brahma Sampradaya, then Shri Sampradaya, starting from Lakshmi, then Kumara Sampradaya, and Rudra Sampradaya. Nimbarka Sampradaya, they are all offshoots of Kumara Sampradaya. If you go to Vrindavan, you will find Banke Bihari temple. Have you heard of this? Yeah, that is, they are coming under Nimbarka Sampradaya. Like that. Okay. And then we have Rudra Sampradaya. Vishnu Swami comes under Rudra Sampradaya, isn't it? Last, I forgot, but yeah. But for us, and we can do that session separately. In Milpark program, we already did that. We may be having your old notes. We did all the Sampradayas and who are all coming below that. But our Guru must belong to one of these Sampradayas. Otherwise, if somebody is freelancing, then we understand that it's dangerous to take shelter of such a person who is not coming under any disciplic succession. Not only must the Guru be under that Sampradaya, but he must be a Parampara Guru also. He must be representing his spiritual master. One devotee was talking to me today. She was telling me, Prabhu, my family is Sri Sampradaya. I said, what do you mean by that? Are they following the tenets of Ramanujacharya? Yeah, I think so. I said, are they watching 2020 cricket match on television? Are they eating outside in restaurants? They say, yeah, they do all that. I said, forget about it. Okay, so it doesn't mean that, Sri Sampradaya, because grandfather was worshipping Narsimhadev. It doesn't mean we are Sri Sampradaya. What we do, what learnings we take becomes our Sampradaya. We cannot say, did you study in, are you IIT Bombay? Yeah, I am IIT Bombay. I have got a house right opposite IIT Bombay. When you say IIT Bombay, what do you mean? Did you study in IIT Bombay? That is a credibility for a person. Not having a house opposite the IIT Bombay campus. I am also Howard. Oh, you're Howard? Yeah, I am just opposite. I have flat opposite Howard University. So yeah, you may have flat outside, but have you studied at Howard? Okay. So this is a very, we are Sri Sampradaya. What do you mean by we are Sri Sampradaya? It doesn't mean anything, right? So, the Guru must be in Parampara, representing the teachings of spiritual master, his spiritual master, and living his life according to the tenets that have been given. Then only it becomes bona fide. Then the Guru, now This is something which is not mandatory. This is not mandatory, but in Kali Yuga it is important. Institutionalization of Sampradaya in Kali Yuga becomes important. Gaurang Prabhu, who is my god brother, he gave an interesting example. He said, if I take a bullet and then I throw it at you, what will happen? You may get some scratch, some bruise. But if I put it inside a gun and then fire at you, then what happens? You know what will happen. Correct? So it's the same bullet, right? But if it is thrown through an organized channel, then it has got more impact like that. So the same message, if given through an institution, has got more impact in Kali Yuga like that. We are from Hare Krishna, International Society of Krishna Consciousness. We have come to give you the science of self-realization. Oh, very good. Thank you. My name is... no, I'm not telling all that. I'm just saying, yeah, I just came to Melbourne. I have just come to give you science of Krishna Consciousness. How does that sound? Who are you? No, I just came from Bombay. Right? That Prabhupada knew. In the West, this is required. In India, it's okay. Anybody with a beard, even generally people are following. Okay. But in the West, where people are a little bit more discerning, then Prabhupada wanted to give this knowledge through an institution. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati also recognized this. Even in India, so he established institutions like Gaudiya Mutt, Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt. So which is Prabhupada's institution? ISKCON. Right? So ISKCON is, so there is Sampradaya, then there is Parampara, then within the Parampara there is, then ISKCON is there. Then the individual qualities of the Guru. Those are very important. Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Upashta Vegam, Etan Vegan Your Vishayata Dira, Sarva Mapimam Prashvim Sa Shishya. Any person who has control over the tongue, belly, genitals, right? So all those qualities, they make up a spiritual master. Individual qualities are important. So when we are deciding who should be our spiritual master, they should be our filtering criteria. Ask all these questions, not blindly. Then the other considerations. There are two considerations: Vani association and Vapu association. Vani association is what? Personal association with spiritual master. Oh, sorry. Vapu association is personal association with spiritual master. I stand corrected. And Vapu is, sorry.
Vani.
Yeah, and Vani is hearing. Just hearing the instruction. Okay. So, more important is what? Vani. Vani is always more important than Vapu. It doesn't matter if the spiritual master need not be personally present in front of us every moment. So this should be the overriding criteria. Vani. For example, for us personally, I can just speak from my own experience. My spiritual master, he doesn't visit this place at all. Okay. He may never come to Australia. And he has made that very clear. I don't think I'll visit Australia. At least now he has no plans. He has never come and he doesn't have any plans. Right? Okay. So, but for us, yes, certainly, it would be good were he to come. But increasingly we are realizing that it is not really essential. It's not really essential for continuing in spiritual life. If we are daily hearing his instructions, that is good enough. Very simple. Have we all developed attachment for Srila Prabhupada? Yes. Has he ever come in front of us and told us anything? Simple example. Just extrapolate the same concept to spiritual master. That's all. Please be careful, but it doesn't mean that we become Ritvik. That is different. Please don't go to that side, because that has got different mood and connotation. Okay. However, we have to understand that Vani is at the end of the day more important. Okay. However, if we get Vapu along with it, that is like the icing on the cake. There is nothing wrong in desiring Vapu association. It is not a sin to desire Vapu association. It is not an aparad to desire Vapu association. If you get it, that's good. Okay. So some people have this criteria. There are many people in this congregation, because we have been doing this Bhakti Vriksha programs. So many times we have seen our Bhakti Vriksha members getting initiated by various spiritual masters. So some of them, this particular incident that I can share with you, I cannot share the name, but this devotee, he was inspired by 3 spiritual masters, right? One never comes to Melbourne and said that he will never come to Melbourne. So he was inspired with this spiritual master. The other spiritual master comes to Melbourne but never comes to your house. He will never come to anybody's house like that. Okay, and there are a lot of disciples around him. The third will come to your house and talk to you and will smile and laugh and talk in your house. And he will even joke with you like that. And he will know the name of your child, your grandchild, your grandfather. Right? Very, very personal, intimate. Okay. Now this devotee came and said, all are inspiring, Prabhu, what to do? You know? Then obviously when we had this discussion, we can't tell him, Prabhu, actually you must take from this spiritual master. No. We never tell anyone who to take initiative from. It should be only that person's decision. Neither do we indirectly say, Prabhu, you can take from both of them, but I think my spiritual master is better. But it's your choice, Prabhu. He's more elevated. No. Okay. This is Guru Aparad. This is an Aparad which we are doing to our own spiritual master. First of all, he himself will be displeased with us if we do this. We are just cheapening our own spiritual master. If we go and indirectly, talk about our spiritual master's glories everywhere, and indirectly try and, take people towards him, then we are cheapening our spiritual master. So we don't. We just keep. It is just the individual's decision. That's all. It doesn't matter. As long as this criteria is fulfilled, how does it matter? Who is your spiritual master? So it has to come from within the heart of that devotee. However, we can assist based on some criteria. So we ask the devotee, okay, what is your criteria? Do you have a desire that, is it okay if your spiritual master doesn't come? Or no, Prabhu, that devotee was there, this Maharaj, he went to that person's house, he looked at me also, he spoke to me, I felt very good. And you immediately come to know what is the mood of this devotee. He really, wants personalization. He wants to cook, he wants to serve personally, he wants to pour dal in the cup, like that, right? Wash the remnants of spiritual master, correct? All this he wants to do. Obviously, then you know what will work and what will not work. Then he said, if you have this kind of desire, then you should look out for those who are doing this. Again, we don't say, therefore it is number 3 for you. No. This is not a shoe shop. Right? Even then we cannot directly tell that person, okay, I think you must take from this person. No, we should never tell that from our mouth. So if that is the desire, then you assess based on, we told that devotee to make a chart. Okay, put all your criteria. Put this, okay, more favorable. Put arrows, like we do in office when taking decision matrix. Let him do all that. And then the person took his own decision. He said, I'm very happy with it. Are you happy? Yes. You are owning the decision. Yes. Did I force you? No. Very good. So, these are considerations. Vani and Bapu. What are not considerations? The country of a spiritual master has got no relevance in Bhakti. Because country is an imaginary line which Krishna has not drawn. Right? It has got no relevance. In India that happens. When I said initially, that who is your spiritual master? So and so. What is he? American. Hey, yeah. Number Urlo Uttur Kadakari. In Tamil means did you not get anyone from our village? Why do you have to go to America to get spiritual master? They are asking like my relatives. I said Haribo. What can you say? Right? So the country is not important. Okay? Discriminating based on nationality, country, etc. is an aparad. It's a Vaishnava aparad. Vaishnavas don't have any. That's a bodily concept of it. Distinguishing based on age. This is another problem. Okay. Prabhu, I want to surrender. He said, but he's young, Prabhu. I'm an old man. I see him as my son and all. It doesn't work like that. Okay. So age is, we see that age is not a criteria at all. Physical appearance. Type 1 error, type 2 error also. This spiritual master, I saw him wearing shirt and pant in the airport. How can he be a guru? Sometimes when our spiritual master has to land in particular countries, if you go to an Islamic country, obviously you can't go with shikha and dancing like this. You know what will happen in the immigration department. So one has to be practical. So our spiritual masters, actually you can take any route for serving the Lord. Okay, it's actually an austerity for spiritual masters to wear trouser. They are not enjoying it, but they are doing it because of their love for their spiritual master. Okay, but we can't judge them. He was wearing jeans, therefore I have seen him in jeans, therefore he is not my spiritual master. Not based on physical appearance or whatever. At the same time, don't do the type 2 also. He is having such long beard, his eyes when it opened, I saw radiance coming out like that. As if we are very qualified to understand the radiance which is coming out from his eyes. So all these are sentimental. Simply go by Vani, Vapu and practical considerations. We have to understand ourselves. If we understand ourselves, we will choose the right spiritual master. Not to make hurry. Not to go, another criteria, not criteria is how many number of followers he has got. Prabhu, there are only 2 people in Melbourne, who has initiated. I am not very sure. He is inspiring me, but Prabhu, why others are not getting inspired by him? Not like that. This is not car purchase. Most of the people go for Toyota Corolla. No, not. It doesn't work like that. Right? For example, I remember that His Holiness Vedvyas Priya Maharaj, when I came in 2005 here, he had only one disciple, Asitarade Prabhu. Right? And today, how many people has he inspired? Every year, somebody is there. At least 4 or 5 are getting inspired. Like that. So that is not the criteria. At that time, if you would have made that aparad, then what would have happened today? You would have just missed somebody who is a pure soul, like that, isn't it? So these should not be our criteria. Now in this matter, our Siksha Guru can guide us. He will not tell you that you should take initiation, but you can take advice from your senior devotees and then they can guide you. Disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Again, this is not a criteria. It should not be, it's not a criteria that is my spiritual master a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada or is he a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. It is not a criteria. For example, His Holiness Kadambakaran Swami Maharaj is not a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He is a disciple of Jaya Advaita Swami Maharaj. But how does it matter? He is inspiring everyone. With his purity, with his lectures, so many are getting inspired. So there is not a criteria. If we think like that, then mentally we are doing an offense to the spiritual master. Okay? That is not a criteria. Or again, as I said, one more example I gave a few minutes back. Disciple of Srila Prabhupada. That's not a criteria. Quick initiation. Prabhu, that Maharaj takes 6-7 years. This Maharaj was giving, Prabhu, what? Prabhu, all junior people are all second initiated. Prabhu, no, I am just waiting. This is not a criteria. This is our false ego. Because we want to get Das name to become Prabhu. Quickly, If we don't have Das name, we don't have prestige in the congregation. But Das means what? Servant. Like that. Okay. So we have to really understand. So this is an indication of prestige. Anything we want quickly is prestige. It is rarely driven by. If you read Saints of Raj and Saints of Bengal, you will learn there, some purity is there. That the person is falling at the feet of Baba. I will give up my life if you don't give me initiation. And actually he will give up his life. Not that it is just a dialogue. Right? But here, this is not a criteria. Then, self is pure enough. That means, why don't you take initiation? Prabhu, I am not qualified to take initiation. Now, what can be done with you? If you keep saying that you are not qualified to get initiation, what can be done? Why do we take initiation? To get qualified. Because we are not qualified, we need initiation. Initiation doesn't mean finalization. The word, please understand the word carefully. Initiation. Initiation means what? Take the first step. Who can take the first step? Who is qualified or who is not qualified? First step is the baby. So babies have to take first step. Isn't it? So there is nothing like, I am not qualified to take initiation. Usually people say this, I am not qualified business because either they are not able to follow 4 regulative principles or because they don't want to chant 16 rounds. Okay? They don't want to tell it. In other words they tell, I am not qualified. Which means what? I don't want to follow the instructions because I have other interests in life. I have a footy, I have cricket, I like to sleep for 14-15 hours. Right? And this is the problem. And therefore I can't chant, I don't have time. My interests are so varied. I am not qualified. It is not, yes, you are not qualified. Everyone knows that. By saying that itself, we know you are not qualified. Right? We don't need to tell that. But we can't keep saying that. So become qualified. Prabhupada said become qualified then. Then chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regulative principles and then surrender to a spiritual master based on this criteria. Is that clear? Yeah. Then, considerations for Guru Pajashray. There are other aspect of it is when can the Guru be? Yeah.
How is the last one related to in terms of the Guru?
This one?
Yeah.
It is not a consideration.
No.
We cannot keep saying that excuse that I am not pure enough, I am not pure enough.
So, my understanding was we are saying not considerations for Guru, isn't it?
Yeah, not considerations for taking a Guru, I am saying. That's why I use the word self. We are not pure enough. Change of Guru. Change of Guru can happen when? We can give up our Guru, our spiritual master, only when there are 2 situations. Not give up in one. In this case it is giving up, in this case it is not exactly giving up. We can give up if the Guru Maharaj is not representing the Sampradayik teachings as it is or his life is not in line with what it should be, right? For example, sometimes a person who is practicing, who has taken sannyas, may fall down because of whatever reasons, right? In his life, usually, because sannyasis are usually male, in his life he can fall down. So at that time, then it is okay, all right, for the disciple to go and take initiation from another spiritual master. Or when the spiritual master leaves the planet, disappearance of a spiritual master. If we are just taken shelter of a spiritual master, and before initiation, when the spiritual master has left the planet, then we can take re-shelter from another spiritual master, because we need a Diksha Guru, isn't it? Then what can we do? We can't take initiation from photograph, that becomes Ritvik. So then we can change the Guru at that time. Or disappearance after initiation from a Shiksha viewpoint. For example, let us take the case of Keshav Prabhu, who is our Bhagavatam teacher. Keshav Prabhu is a disciple, a Diksha disciple of Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj has left the planet. So Keshav Prabhu, what he has done? He is for him right now, Burijan Prabhu is his Guru. He has mentioned that in the class, right? He takes all instructions from Burijan Prabhu in his life right now, and Jagattarani Mataji, like that. So Guru Maharaj has disappeared after his initiation, but from a Siksha viewpoint, he still needs someone who is as good as his Diksha Guru. Like that. Does it make sense?
So probably does it have to be made formal, or how does it go? You just
No, it doesn't have to. It's a relationship of the heart,
Okay.
because there is no ceremony for this.
Yeah.
So just want to make a point.
Yeah.
So the point you mentioned, the institution is very important.
Yeah.
And Srila Prabhupada has formed GBC.
Yeah.
And we have to be abiding those rules and regulations of that. Like I've seen few years back, there was one Mataji, she was after one Mataji, and she was pestering her saying that I want to take initiation. And she was very clear that I'm not qualified, I'm not supposed to do that. She was saying that I want to take initiation from you. She was the Mataji actually, Urmila Mataji.
Okay.
So one Mataji was approaching another Urmila Mataji to take initiation. But she's not understanding the point that we also follow institution rules as well, which TBC and Srila Prabhupada has found.
Yeah. Okay. But she can wait. She can wait till she starts initiating. Okay.
Probably in this regard, I have a question. So one takes several. So taking sannyas is also after Brahmin, and then should it be the same spiritual master, or how does that?
Taking sannyas?
So if someone progresses further, they take shelter, then first initiation, Brahmin initiation, and then if they were to take sannyas, should also be awarded from a spiritual master, or
Not necessarily. Your sannyasa guru can be different than your diksha
Can
guru.
be
Like
different.
Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada's sannyasa guru was different,
okay.
and Srila Prabhupada's diksha guru was different.
So it can be. There is no, as long as it's the
Yeah.
same sampradaya and parampara.
Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. So here, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that he is describing that the transcendental knowledge that one receives from the spiritual master, that is being described. So, what is this transcendental knowledge which we receive from this bona fide spiritual master? We have talked so much about spiritual master. Now we are talking about transcendental knowledge that comes from him. What is that transcendental knowledge that the spiritual master gives us? So you have to remember this. Knowledge of SAP is very important. SAP. Okay. What is SAP? It is not that SAP software. Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana. Knowledge of SAP is very important. Sambandha Gyan. So a spiritual master must be one who gives us Sambandha Gyan. What is Sambandha Gyan?
Relationship.
Knowledge of who we are. First of all, the spiritual master must tell us that we are not this body. We are the spirit soul. Then he must tell us what is our relationship with Krishna. This is called as Sambandha Gyan. Jivera Swarupa Hoy Nityera Krishna Das. The spiritual master has to, this is the basic transcendental knowledge that we get. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, we think that we are the center of the universe and everything revolves around us, we and our desires, and everyone should align according to us. But after coming to Krishna consciousness, because we understand the Sambandha Gyan, we try to align with Krishna's desires and then all the desires of his representatives. So that is Sambandha Gyan. The second is Abhideya. Abhideya means the process. Okay. The process. The spiritual master must be able to give us the correct process for Kali Yuga, from the which has been practiced coming from the disciplic succession, which is Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Sometimes what happens? People go and say, "You are initiated, huh? You are ISKCON." They see this and say, "You are ISKCON, Prabhu?" Yeah. Are you initiated? Yeah. Even I am initiated. Then you say, "How?" I have got mudra. The chop, you know. Nothing wrong with that chop. But the problem is, we ask, who gave you that chop? Guru. Who is Guru? One person was there. How you got that? One day they kept big ceremony, everyone was in line, I was also standing. It is not printing currency notes in the bank. There has to be a personal relationship between the Guru and the disciple. It's not an impersonal process. That come one, come all, trespassers will be initiated. It's not like that. It's a conscious process. Yeah? It's a conscious process. So in ISKCON, Prabhupada established a very firm process. First you come inside. What do you do first? Start chanting. One round. From there it all starts. Start chanting. One round regularly. From there it starts. Prabhu, I can't give tea, coffee. Don't worry. Chant. TV. Don't worry. Chant. One round. Cricket. One round. I sleep too much. Okay, no problem. One round. It all starts with one round. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 16. Right? Eventually we go through, every devotee goes through this struggle and cycle. Right? And then following the 4 regulative principles. Once we do that, in ISKCON there is a process called as shelter. Why not direct initiation? Prabhu, I reached 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles today. Maharaj, where is the Yagya Kund? Why it doesn't happen like that? You're doing, no? You have reached 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles. What's the problem? We have to have consistency. And consistency is shown over time. So there is a time period. Otherwise, even a useless batsman can score a century in one match. After that, all zeros. Right? There has to be consistent. We have to become predictable to our spiritual master. So therefore, the process of shelter is given, and after shelter, then the process of initiation happens. Like that. Where the spiritual master accepts the disciple also takes a vow that from now, I am not only showing an intent, but I am actually taking a vow. There is a big difference between taking a vow to chant 16 rounds and doing 16 rounds. Now you are taking a vow. Now you can't go back. Even if you have flu, 102 fever, still I have to finish my rounds. Right? You have to do that. Take Panadol and Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Right? That consistency has to be there. Under any situation, then we have to, don't give up our 16 rounds. And that we are committing ourselves to our spiritual master. So that commitment is what makes initiation very special. Not the name Das and the prestige that comes along with it. It's a commitment, it's a responsibility. So spiritual master gives us the Abhideya, the process to follow. Shravanam, Kirtanam and Vishnu Smaranam. These are the 3 main processes which spiritual master gives. And then Prayojan. Prayojan means what? After doing all this, what's in it for me? What is a goal? Prayojan means goal. The goal is what? What is the goal?
To reach Krishna. To reach
To reach Krishna means what? Krishna is everywhere.
Get out of this birth life.
Is that the goal
Serve
of
Krishna.
bhakti?
Get
Sadhana?
along with Krishna.
To develop love of Krishna. It doesn't matter if we don't get out of the spiritual world. That is not the prayojana. Our prayojana is not to get out of the spiritual world. Even Mayavadis want to get out of the spiritual world, impersonalists. Sorry, get out of the material world. Right? Swarga, apavarga, narakeshva, api tulyartha darshana. A devotee doesn't care if he is in heaven or hell or wherever. His only desire is what? Loving devotional service for Lord Krishna. And sometimes our spiritual masters, some of them have a very different mood. They say, fine, Lord Krishna is there in the spiritual world, but next lifetime I want to go where Prabhupada is there. I want to serve him in his mission. This is mood of many spiritual masters. Right? They want to serve their spiritual master. I remember one of my god brothers, Stoka Krishna Prabhu, when he left his body, at that time, Maharaj was sitting next to him, close to him, and Maharaj was reading pastimes of Vraja Leela to help him meditate. He's saying, meditate on this so you can go back to Godhead. He looked at Maharaj. This was just few minutes before, one day before or whatever, before he left the body. He said, Maharaj, I don't want to go to spiritual world. Wherever you are, I want to come back to serve you, he said. This was the desire when he left, before he left his body. Similar desire is also, when we see His Holiness Indrajumna Swami Maharaj. He always, from his mood, it's always very clear. He just wants to go where Prabhupada is. Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Again, where is Prabhupada? Like that. That is the mood of the acharyas. They just want to. So a devotee does not actually even tell the Lord, oh, please get me out of this miserable world. No. But please understand, these are all devotees of a very high caliber. For us, at our level, yes, we can pray like that. There is nothing wrong. It's a good desire to get out of the material world. Very few people want to even pray like that. So it's good, but that is not Uttama Bhakti. Uttama Bhakti means what? Just having the desire, unalloyed, Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. No other desire for myself. Me doesn't come at all in that. Where I want to be is immaterial. All we want to do is serve the Lord wherever the Lord wants us to serve Him or His devotees. Like that. But the goal, the ultimate goal is to develop rati. Rati for the Lord. The ultimate goal, Prabhupada, even Srila Rupa Goswami writes in the Nectar of Instruction, final verses. He says, what is the ultimate goal? To follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis. To follow in the Gopi Bhartur Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Das. To follow in the footsteps of these gopis. That is our ultimate goal. Whether we get liberation or not is secondary, but at least we have to follow. We have to develop the mood. We have to develop the rati or the love that they have for Lord Krishna. To graduate from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti to Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. That is a different subject matter. We'll not talk about it now in great depth. But Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti means what? Bhakti which is driven by rules and regulations. And Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is what? Bhakti which is spontaneously arising from the heart. We are not offering bhoga because it is 12 o'clock. We are offering bhoga because Lord Krishna is hungry. There is a difference. Oh, it's 12 o'clock, let's go to the bhoga. No, it's not like that. This is driven by rules and regulations and time. That is driven, oh, the little baby has not eaten. I have to feed him. How can I eat without him? He is hungry. How can I put a morsel in my mouth? Like that. Then that is spontaneously coming from the heart. Like that. Or, some people have that mood. Some people will say that, I can't. If my deities have not eaten, I cannot put anything in my mouth. First, offering should be out of love again. It's not out of ritual. No, deity should have been eaten because see, I have promised during initiation that I'll first offer bhoga. That's a different mood. Right? Right? It's a wife buys a gift for the husband buys gift for wife. I am buying you this watch because I have married you. How does that sound? And the husband is supposed to be loving to his wife. So here I am trying to token of my love. How does that sound? And then how does it sound that I've been thinking that you need a watch. I can't see your struggle, my dear. And then the husband gives. See what happened. The wife is surprised. What happened? You have fever or what? You got crazy? Something wrong with your behavior today. Do you want something from me? So talking of doing something out of real affection rather than out of adherence to some good principles in life. So there's a difference between Vaidhi and Raganuga. So our mood should not remain in the Vaidhi platform for too long. Our sadhana must be such that we must go towards the journey of cultivating Rag. That is our prayojana. The spiritual master removes avidya. Transcendental knowledge means what? Sambandha, abhidaya, prayojana, and removal of avidya. Avidya means ignorance. Ignorance of our identity. That I am not this body. Initially we think I am this body. So he removes that identity. Or some people say that I am this, I am God. Like Prabhupada was lecturing somewhere once in US. Someone entered. I am God, I am God. He started shouting inside. Prabhupada said, please accept my obeisances and sit down there. Something like that, Prabhupada said. Very funny. So some people have this concept that they are God. So they have to be brainwashed, saying that you are not God. Right? So the Guru removes this avidya. Now, there is an interesting verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. We have just given this cross reference. You may want to note down. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.4. This is a very interesting verse. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma. This is the teachings by Lord Rishabhadev. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yad indriya pritaya apranoti. Na sadhu manye yata atmano yam asha napi kleshada asade. Now, a very nice verse. So, it talks about this ignorance. What is this ignorance? It says that the basic ignorance is what? That sense gratification is the summum bonum of life. This is the first ignorance. The goal of life is what? To enjoy. That ignorance spiritual master is taking away. Now, because this sense gratification, people think sense gratification is the goal of life, therefore people engage in sinful activity. So, this whole verse sums up that mood. And because people engage in sinful activity, they are further in ignorance, put further in ignorance. So it's a cycle of being ignorant and being in sinful activity. And because they are ignorant, they do not know why they have received this material body and what to do with it. Right? This verse sums up the whole thing. Whatever I told you, 5.5.4. And they do not know why I have received this body and why am I suffering in this body. They don't know that. They do not understand that this body is a vehicle which is meant for attaining liberation from that body, from material existence. So it's like a space suit, if you like, which will help you go outside this atmosphere. The same body which has bound us can help us get liberated. So they don't know this. So this ignorance, the spiritual master removes. Any questions or thoughts?
Brief, small question for you. Maybe it is not in context, but once we commit and take shelter or initiation and somehow we break the vow, what are the consequences? So of course there is impact to bhakti, where we want to, but what are the other things that can arise?
All others will arise because it impacts bhakti.
Okay. So that is the ultimate.
Gankeshwar Prabhu was mentioning in this morning's class that the moment we are inattentive in our chanting, all problems arise from that one single problem. So we cannot say that Prabhu everything is going fine except that bhakti is little bit Prabhu loose. No, it doesn't work like that. When bhakti is loose, nothing will work in our life. And if something works in our life, please understand, and we are not doing bhakti, that whatever fruits of that work, that will bind us into the material world. It will not be good for us. So the most important thing to bring in order in our life is our bhakti. If we bring that in order, all other things will perfectly fit everywhere in their respective places. It will fit. Anything else? Okay. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Indra Mataji, you want to read?
Proper understanding of one's constitutional position in relationship to Krishna is so nice that it can at once lift one from the struggle for existence which goes on in the ocean of nescience. This material world is sometimes regarded as an ocean of nescience and sometimes as a blazing forest. In the ocean, however expert a swimmer one may be, the struggle for existence is very severe. If someone comes forward and lifts the struggling swimmer from the ocean, he is the greatest savior. Perfect knowledge received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the path of liberation. The boat of Krishna consciousness is very simple, but at the same time the most sublime.
Any thoughts?
Thing is, saying even if you are sinful, even if you are the most sinful person, with the transcendental knowledge you can, it's much more a question, how can one do that? Person is sinful, how can they do anything because they are sinful?
Okay. So there are two things we need to understand. Sorry.
As it said in Bhagavatam, Samashritai Padam Mahatpadam Punesho Murare, Bhavam Mudye Vatsapadam Padam Padam Hekpadam Padam Natation. Like, however difficult is the material world, like it will become so simple, like it's easy to cross it, like ocean will become like a water contained in that half full. So we can apply that here.
Okay. So there are two things. One is papam, papam, and the second is aparad. There is a difference between pap and aparad. There is a difference between sin and offense. Okay? Most of us lived very sinful lives before we came to Krishna consciousness. So sin doesn't bar one from entering the process of bhakti. Because the process of bhakti is to wash away the sins. That's what is the power of bhakti. It is said that bhakti process is so powerful, chanting of the holy names is so powerful, that one cannot commit as many sins in one lifetime as much as it can be washed by the holy name. So sin is not a big problem, right? Most of us have problems in bhakti because of offense, aparad. Because we do aparad, we are not getting love for Krishna. What is the one aparad that we find it very difficult? See, giving up alcohol, meat and all that it happens very fast. It's not a big challenge for devotees. Giving up television is also easy. Giving up attraction for material life is also it's not very, very difficult. Okay, because we'll start getting higher taste. Most difficult is what? Blaspheming devotees. Even attentive chanting sometimes, we can still do. Burijan Prabhu comes and says, one mantra at a time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama. After that, immediately they say, Burijan Prabhu is talking, look at that person. One mantra at a time he told. I was chanting nicely, but this person, I don't know how many times he has to be. That is the most important. Our tongue is our enemy. It's our friend and enemy also. The same tongue which vibrates the Hare Krishna Mahamantra pops out the frog. And that is our number one problem, because of which we don't get bhakti. We are not getting the real benefit of chanting. We are taking bath and then we are coming out and rolling our body in the mud. Elephants bathing, right? So we get purified, again we put mud on top of it by giving our unsolicited view on other devotees. Right? That is the number one problem. Gramya Katha, village talk about devotees. Right? He is like that, whatever. This is our problem, number one problem, all of us, including me also. Number one problem. Because of which what is happening? Rati is not manifesting. There is no chance of getting into spontaneous love till we overcome this stage. That is why most of us are bound to Anartha Nivritti stage, because of this one thing, that we just can't get along with some devotees and our tongue brings it out. Like that, right? So, yeah.
So do you mean that before coming to bhakti, whatever activities we do, the sinful activity are categorized as sin, And after coming to bhakti, they are categorized as aparadha, due to which we cannot progress in bhakti. Because you said that sinful activities, with sin, the process of devotional service can wipe them out. But offenses will keep us bound. So is it that
After coming into bhakti, sin can become offenses. Because then what happens, your spiritual master is telling you don't take meat. Now after taking that instruction, if you are not following, it's not only a sin you are doing, but an offense of third offense, disobeying the instruction of spiritual master. I don't know whether I answered your question. But so sin is okay. You started with sin, right? How can sinful? Yeah. So our problem is aparadha, not sin. Sin can be destroyed very easily. Okay. So 36. So Arjun, yeah.
How do you nullify the offense?
How to nullify the offense? Depends on the offense. Okay. For example, if offense is blasphemy of a devotee, and if the devotee is hurt, the only way to nullify that offense is to first of all seek pardon from the devotee and glorify that devotee in public. Genuinely. However, my spiritual Maharaj once said, if you can't make it, fake it. At least glorify without your heart. But glorify.
That is not offense.
Which one? Because others don't know now why you are glorifying. They think you are very advanced devotee. Oh, that Jagannath Ram always glorified that Prabhu. Oh, we should learn from him. But they don't know why Jagannath Ram is glorified. Because Jagannath Ram is envious of that devotee. Therefore, he is using the principle of glorifying a devotee who you are envious about. In front of everyone.
Somebody glorifying us?
Pardon? Quite possible. So if we don't glorify, we will fall down. And if we accept others' glorification also, we will fall down. Pardon? Yes, that's a very valid point. And we should serve that devotee, who we have offended.
But today's class, Gangeshwar Prabhu was telling like, whatever we do, that effect will be there.
Correct.
We
can't do anything.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we can't do anything. There are two things. The devotee has pardoned us, but Krishna has not pardoned us. We can't do anything.
Yeah.
Then chanting will nullify that. Actually, chanting will nullify this. Chanting has the power to nullify everything. If chanting cannot nullify something, that means chanting is not powerful. There is nothing that chanting cannot nullify. But Namnad Balad Yasya hi Papa Buddhir. We cannot continue doing offenses on the strength of the fact that we are chanting, because though chanting is capable of doing it, that capability is withdrawn. It's just like I have $50,000 in the bank, and so what? I can take any time. But I want to give $20,000 to the bank. I can't because they have locked my account. I'm not able to access it. Is it there? Yes, it is there. Is the money that I have enough to pay that? Yes, but I don't have access to that money at this point in time because my account is locked. So, by making offenses, we are not. Lord Krishna doesn't release the full potency of the holy name to us. That is the problem. Therefore, we have to guard against the offenses to devotees.
Most of the time when you do offense, we also cannot chanting attentively also.
Yes, most of the time, yeah, we cannot chant attentively. And one of the offensive mentalities, what will happen is our material desires will go up if we are offensive. Slowly again we will start liking that sofa come bed, wooden, teak wood furniture. That means we are doing offense. Something is wrong in our bhakti, chanting. Inattentive chanting is one offense. If we do that, material desires will again pop up. Sex desire will pop up in the heart. These are the symptoms.
So can there be situations where, in terms of blasphemy, can there be situations when you can genuinely disagree with somebody and you discuss with the third person or as a means of constructive feedback? Sometimes maybe behind somebody, but you still can. Maybe it's you know what I mean? It's not in your view, it may be constructive criticism you're doing, and you're trying to do it in front of that person, but sometimes it can happen in a situation like that.
The person gets hurt.
But you're still.
So once I heard from my spiritual master that it is not only important not to do offense, but it is also important not to give a perception of having done an offense to a devotee. Perception can also be difficult. Of course, a very high instruction. We should not give perception also to a devotee.
But what if other person takes to? You're
Huh?
not giving it.
What if?
What if other person takes like that?
Both fall down. Both fall down.
But that, when we see everyone as Vaishnavas, we should not have that feeling, isn't it, Prabhu? Saying that, he is making a mistake, so I should tell something, or give indirect message. We should be tolerant, isn't it? That's what is Vaishnava philosophy. Before another Vaishnava commits a mistake, even though it can be direct on you or indirect on you, that means we are not progressing well enough, isn't it?
Yeah, if we commit offenses, means we are not progressing. Okay, we'll take that point further because of time we can't discuss.
Point of view, even taking
we'll take it in the
offense
later class.
is also a sign of not so progressing well, is it?
Yeah.
I think Prabhu was trying to clarify. Taking offense is also not a sign of advancement.
Taking offense is also not a sign of advance because one of the qualities of a Vaishnava is that a Vaishnava is forgiving by nature.
Paradukka dukki.
Not Paradukka dukki. Paradukka dukki is compassion. He is forgiving by nature. Means he does not take any offense.
I remember one of the quote, Prabhuji, a Vaishnava is a Vaishnava who forgives the offense before
the person is finished. Okay, so Lord Krishna, yes.
But what if we don't know what offense we've committed, but we can actually feel that we have?
Okay, so if some Mataji has stopped smiling at us, correct? Why, yesterday she said Hari Bol, but nowadays she is, and worst is that she is becoming over friendly with my friend. That is even worse, isn't it? It's like really, Mataji was my best friend till yesterday, but today, she is becoming more and more friendly with that person. What offense have I committed, Prabhu? Sometimes that can also happen. Not in this case, but sometimes that can also happen. So, if somebody is behaving in a particular manner, then we can just go to that person and ask, Mataji, have I committed any offense? Please let me know so I can correct myself. I am full of faults, but because I have seen that our relationship is not as before. We are not associating with each other as much. Like that, you can go and talk to that Mataji. Once or twice, but after that, if the Mataji is still nothing, then what you can do? You can't do anything, right? Then maximum, if you believe that there can be an incident which must have triggered, if you remember, that day probably I put less salt in the khichdi or something like that. Some incident must be there. So then you can go and say that, I believe that, I was wrong in that case. I don't know whether you have taken offense for that reason or so, but then I believe that I should not have done. You can be open with that, but beyond that you can't do anything.
What if you don't know who it is, like you don't show it in their behavior, that you've offended them, but you have, how do you nullify that anyway?
That is very simple. If they don't show it in their behavior, then all you have to do is do the same thing. You can talk to them. Mataji, I know, I have done this offense.
It's not that person, it's just you've offended someone, but you don't know who.
Oh, you have offended someone but you don't know who.
Yes.
Give me a situation. Give me a situation.
Like some people are good at hiding their emotions. Like let us say if I talk to you, let's say, and you're offended, but it's not on your face, but I have.
Yes.
But it will show, let's say, my chanting. So then I'm like, oh, I probably offended someone, but I don't know whom. How do I nullify that offense?
But that can only happen if for example, it can happen when you're giving a class. Okay. If you're giving a class and you make some point, I had that situation before. I was giving a Srimad Bhagavatam class and one devotee thought that I was speaking about him or her. And then, you told her, I know you are, and she told my wife, your Prabhu was talking about me. And I didn't even know that Mataji was facing some problem. I didn't even know it. I was sitting in Bhagavatam class, I am telling something from Prabhupada's books. Most of what Prabhupada is saying is common to all of us anyway. Because he said, one who is envious of others cannot have access to Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhu, you are talking about me. Possible, because you are maybe envious. Hands up if none of us have envy in this room. Isn't it? So in one sense, that Mataji is very glorious because she thought that yes, she is envious. In one sense, her humility is coming out. But in another sense, it becomes a little bit controversial because she thought that I was speaking about her. And I didn't even know that she had a specific problem. I was talking something and then it went straight to her. So then when my wife told me that, then I went and apologized to that Mataji. I said, no, I was not speaking about you. I'm sorry, but if I have given that impression. But beyond that, you can't do anything. After that, try to serve. Mataji, can I drop you home? All those things you can do. But beyond that, you can't do anything. And being a Prabhu, I can't even overdo it. Because Mataji is, what can you do? You have to limit there's some point you can't. So I tell Yamanali, we'll serve somewhere, that Mataji. But beyond the point, you can't do. We can't go on pandering to somebody's idiosyncrasies. That's not good for their spiritual life also. Again and again, the person is becoming moody always. Then it's better to avoid that. That means it's not gelling. I asked my counselor, I asked one of the senior devotees also, when I went for the, yatra last year, what to do if some devotee is, we are trying to approach, but always, sullen look on the face and then not approaching and just staying very aloof. He said, we can't do anything about it. We can't. So just associate with the other devotees. Just don't be offensive. Just be good to that devotee. That's all. We cannot have perfect relationship with everyone. It is not possible. Because we are human. We will gel with some people more than the other. We are not Prabhupada, who is Pandita Samadarshina. Even the dog is as same as, we are not at that platform. But through our chanting, definitely, through our sadhana, one day we will aspire to come to that platform. We can't do beyond the point, we can't. But there is no point in keeping on worrying about all these things. Just we have to move on in life. Yeah? Apologize, serve, move on. What can you do? Better to the thinking.
I was just thinking that Jagai and Madhava had the same problem. In that I think they approached Lord Chaitanya about it and said, I've offended so many people and I was drunk half the time and I don't remember much of it. So what do I do? And Lord Chaitanya said basically, well, everybody bathes in the bathing gut, and therefore, if you redo the bathing gut and then help everybody, then you'll serve everybody. So there's nothing that we can go out and make bathing gut down. Find some service that you can do that everybody does. For example, serving prasadam when everybody comes through. And you can serve men, women, anybody when they're coming through the line, for example. So.
Very good. Alright. So, Lord Krishna is addressing Arjuna's fear of sin and resultant suffering, which he asked in chapter 1. In chapter 1, what was Arjuna afraid of? Committing the sin of killing in Kurukshetra and suffering the reactions of that. So, through all these verses, Lord Krishna is telling him that the cure for fear is not fleeing the battlefield, but carrying on with the battle under transcendental knowledge. If you are fearing sinful reaction, it doesn't mean you have to run away from the battlefield. The real cure for your fear is what? Work under Krishna's instructions. Then you need not fear. Why? Because you don't get any karma. We saw that already, a karma. That is the central point. So the Lord in this verse 36 is glorifying the pure effects of transcendental knowledge. And the Lord is compared, it's said that transcendental knowledge is compared to a boat. And the material world is compared to a ocean. So this knowledge will take us across. Even an expert swimmer cannot swim across, but sometimes needs to be lifted out by the suitable boat. So all these examples are given here. Also an analogy is given. The material world is also compared to a blazing forest fire. So this verse is giving those analogies. Text 37. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. So, Srila Prabhupada, this is a very important verse to understand. Srila Prabhupada talks about 4 stages of reaction here. You may want to note down. Reaction in the making, reaction which is fructifying, reaction which is already achieved, and reactions a priori. It's there in the verse itself. So, it's there in the purport itself. Okay, 4 types. All I want you to do is put names against each other. Reaction in the making is kutam. Reaction fructifying is bijam. Reaction already achieved is prarabdha, and reaction a priori is aprarabdha. Okay, and everyone is clear on these things, or do you want me to elaborate on this?
Please repeat.
Repeat.
Reaction in the making is kutam. Reaction fructifying is bijam.
Okay. So, we have done this in our Bhakti Shastri a few times. Nirpal also we have covered this thing. So, papam is what? Papam means sin. Now the basic cause of our suffering is what? Yeah, ignorance, but that is the final conclusion will be that.
Sinful activities.
But basically we are suffering because we did sinful activities, right? Now, when we do sinful activities, what happens? We get a reaction which is stored for the future, not future life necessarily, in the future, right? So that is what is that called as aprarabdha, right? Aprarabdha means what? That I did a sin, but today is what? 20th of October, I don't know, whatever. Yeah? And then I am going to get a reaction in 2015. Okay? That is aprarabdha. Because I did a sin, now I am going to get a reaction. It's stored for me sometime in the future. Which is what Prabhupada calls as a priori. Now, there is one more thing which happens because I do sin. Because I did sin, I develop a proclivity to sin or a tendency to sin. Does it make sense? Because let me give a crude example. Because someone rapes once, he gets into the habit of rape. Because someone murders or someone steals, he gets into the habit of stealing. So there's a proclivity, there's a tendency to do that again and again. Is it clear? Yeah. So even if you go to, if you see, the criminals, if you study, you will find what they call as habitual offenders. So where does it come? It comes from that proclivity, which is called as uttam. So you will see that they always have a tendency to steal or to hit someone or to abuse someone. That is there. Since childhood, sometimes you may find in some people. Now, when that tendency becomes a specific desire, when that tendency takes shape of a specific desire to do a sin, then that is called as bija. Is it clear? Yeah? I am thinking that, I can't live without stealing. Okay, let me go. This person, golden watch is having. Okay, let me steal. That becomes from kutam, it becomes bija. And then then what happens? We can't live too much with our desires without acting on those desires. When we act on those desires, it becomes papa. So there's a cycle. This is given very nicely. It's explained in Waves of Devotion by Dhanurdhar Swami. But what Dhanurdhar Swami says, that the root of this papam is what at the end of the day? Avidya. Does it make sense? Avidya means what? Ignorance. Ignorance that I am the body, everything belongs to me, and this material world is meant for my enjoyment, and I am the center of the universe. So because of this avidya only all these things happen. Right? And the spiritual master removes this at the root. He removes this avidya. That is why devotees, after many years in Krishna consciousness, they develop good qualities. It is said that Shubhada, all saintly qualities will start appearing in a devotee. We stop swearing, right? We are very careful on how we present ourselves, things like that. Cleanliness, so many good things happen like that. We may not be perfect, but at least we are on the path of improvement. Like that. Now, what happens is, the reaction which is stored for future, by the passage of time, the future becomes the present. Correct? Time only separates the future from the present. So when this becomes present and we start suffering that suffering is called as prarabdha. Is it clear? Is it clear? Aprarabdha becomes prarabdha because of the passage of time. Because when actually 2015 happens, on a particular day, something will happen or some fracture will happen. Why? Or somebody will throw a stone at me. I don't know, what did I do? 2 years back you threw a stone at somebody. Prarabdha. Now that aprarabdha has become prarabdha by the passage of time. Right? Now, we have discussed this many times. But why this time is required? What is the relevance of this time? Correct. Prayarchit. This time is a mercy of the Lord. He says that, look, you threw a stone at somebody. Even today, I have marked your aprarabdha in 2015. But today also, if you start chanting Hare Krishna, you don't have to pay for that. That is the Lord's mercy. Kal, it's an energy of the Lord. Time is an energy of the Lord. So He is giving us an opportunity to nullify those sinful reactions. And to also, by the chanting of the Mahamantra, what happens? Our Bijam, Kutam, everything is going away. Our tendency also to offend will go away. Not only will sins go away, but our tendency to offend go away. Because what is the difference between karma kandis and bhaktas? Karma kandis, when they face with the problem, oh, I am having poor health, I think I should do some rituals in my house for demigods to give good health. They will do that. But how do devotees attack? Devotees go to the root of the health problem. And then they solve it then and there itself. You are not only praying for the good health of someone who is suffering from indigestion all the time, but what you are doing, oh, you are having indigestion, Prabhu, because you are eating in the Bengal Tiger restaurant. Okay? Eat only prasadam cooked at home and offer it to the Lord. So this is the approach devotee takes. It's much more fundamental. By eating that, what happens? The desire to go out and eat will also go away. Right? So you are solving the problem at the root. In Karma Kanda, what you are doing? Prabhu, he has eaten in Bengal Tiger. He can't now, but health has gone now. Just make some puja so that his health comes back to normal. After health comes back to normal, again he will go to Bengal Tiger. Correct? So that is the problem. That is the difference between the Karma Kandi approach and the Bhakta's approach. What is that? Bengal Tiger. There is something I see here. Actually, I don't have anything against the restaurant. I don't want the owner to sue me. Don't show this video.
I have a question in Sri.
Can you ask in the next class? Huh? Just note it down. Car park. Where is Madhavan Prabhu is not there. Who is in charge of car park? There is no car park anywhere. Can you become in charge of car park? Ask me your own question. Or maybe you can ask me after the class. I'll just move on. I want to finish in the next 10 minutes at least. 9:15 we should be over. 30, which one did we do? Yeah. Also please understand that the bhakti not only destroys our bad karma, but it also destroys our good karma. Prabhu, that is not fair. I helped the poor man across the road. I fed 10,000 people in my last lifetime. Will that all go? Answer is what? Yes. Why? But that's not good, isn't it?
Because good karma binds you.
Because good karma binds you into this material world. Do you want to go to the heavenly planets? Yes. Not bad idea, isn't it? Urvashi and Apsara are there. Right? And there is celestial nectar available there. But you can go there, but after the results run out, then again you have to come down into this material world. So good karma is, in fact, good karma is more dangerous than bad karma. Bad karma, at least you have a desire to get out. Good karma, the desire to get out will not be there. Because Urvashi will be massaging in the feet. Who will want to get out? Isn't it? Very difficult. Huh?
What goes first?
What goes first? I don't know. The laws of karma are very difficult to understand. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita itself said. You can't. But yes, it's a good point. Actually, you touched an interesting point in another sense. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Lord Krishna removes everything but still keeps some prarabdha karma. He says that. Some prarabdha is kept. What is one symptom of prarabdha karma? This body. Yes. So it is said that prarabdha karma is still there. But it's a good, thanks for reminding me. Forgot that. Fine. Text 38. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. So in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is using the word kalena. Kalena means in course of time. In course of time. So Srila Prabhupada is warning us against premature renunciation. And kalena also implies that Lord Krishna is encouraging us to act in in a detached manner. Work with a detached mood. Nishkama Karma Yoga, which we have already seen before in the earlier classes. So by working continuously in Nishkam Karma Yoga, in the course of time what will happen? Transcendental knowledge will be revealed to us and we can move to the Akama platform from the Nishkama platform. That is what this verse is trying to say. "39. Did we read 39 or 38? We read 38. 39. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace." So Srila Prabhupada here is highlighting the importance of faith in acquiring transcendental knowledge. Now what do you mean by that faith? What is this faith that Srila Prabhupada is referring to? Faith means one who thinks that simply by discharging his duties in Krishna consciousness, one can attain the highest perfection. This faith we must have. That is the faith which is mentioned here. And how does this faith develop? By actually doing the process of bhakti. All samshaya or doubts will go away by discharging bhakti and chanting. Right? There is a very nice verse, you can read it offline. It's 3.5.13, Srimad Bhagavatam, which I just tried to cross-reference here. Shraddha dhanasya vivardhamana viraktim anyatra karoti pumsam hare pada anusmriti nirvritasya samasta dukkha apyayam asudhante. Asu means what? Very fast. The translation is that for one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing the topics of Lord Krishna, for one who is anxious constantly to hear topics of Lord Krishna, such Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Okay, everyone is getting distracted there. Okay. So what did we discuss? For one who is always anxious to engage in Krishna Katha, gradually what happens? Yeah, one becomes indifferent towards all other material things in this world. Such constant remembrance of the Lord by a devotee, such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. Asudatte. Very quickly all your miseries will be vanquished if you keep hearing Krishna Katha. With faith, Shraddha dhanasya vivardhamana. The word Shraddha is used there. Not simply hearing. Hearing with faith. Faith is important. Text 40. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next world. So we don't waste too much time with people who are always doubting the process of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada mentions there are three classes of people who fail in this doubt category. Three categories. One is Agya, A-J-N-A, Agnya. Agnya means ignorant people. They are compared to animals. They are foolish like animals. They may attain some material happiness. No doubt. Their doubts will not come in the way of their material happiness. Their doubts will definitely come in the way of their spiritual progress. Because atheists also sometimes are materially happy and well off. Right? So Agya is the ignorant, foolish. Then the second category is Ashraddha Dhana. Ashraddha Dhana is not ignorant, they are faithless. There is a difference between a person who is ignorant and who is faithless. Right? The first category is ignorant, foolish like animals. Second is faithless. These faithless people, they have some knowledge of the Shastras, but because they hear from 50 sources and they always meditate on the differences between different sources, they never get resolute determination for bhakti. They always remain faithless. But I heard Sai Baba temple, they are saying this. But Durga temple was talking this. ISKCON temple is talking this. That fellow told this. Margaret Thatcher told this. No, there is no end. Amitabh Bachchan told something. No, Tom Cruise said something. Scientology. No, they will go nowhere. A rolling stone gathers no moss. So ashraddha. There is no faith will never get developed within the heart. Then the third one is shamshayatma, doubtful. Ignorant, faithless and doubtful. The doubtful people are the ones who have faith, but they are swayed by doubt. Right?
Probably these are three categories of
These are three categories of people who fail in Krishna, who fail to achieve resolute determination in bhakti, which are being spoken about. So they are swayed by doubt. For example, somebody will say, Prabhu, all this Krishna consciousness is fine, but I don't know whether in my life it is effective or not. People will talk like that. In my life, in my context, whether it will work. This is called as doubtful, shamshayatma. And such people who have doubt, they may not even attain material happiness. What to speak of material happiness? They will not even attain. What to speak of spiritual happiness? Neither material happiness will come, nor spiritual happiness will come. So three categories. Now, because these three categories are mentioned here, in the next verse, Lord Krishna is revealing how to destroy those doubts. That is the text 41. One who acts in devotional service renounces the fruits of his actions and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. So Lord Krishna is saying here, Prabhupada is writing in the purport, that one has to apply the transcendental knowledge to work. One has to put transcendental knowledge physically to use, not just keep the transcendental knowledge in the mind. Act dutifully. Do your prescribed duties and renounce the fruits of the actions. Nishkama Karma Yoga. Under transcendental knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita 9.2, this is also mentioned. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartamakayam. Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam. You will get direct evidence by perception. We will all experience the bliss. And then our faith will go up. Our doubts will go away. We have all realized, right? Krishna consciousness is a process which works. Chanting works, right? Once upon a time, we thought that we cannot give up tea coffee. We gave up. We thought that, without television, how we can survive? Right? But we are surviving without television, right? So all this is happening by the process of Krishna consciousness. So when we see that, then our faith develops. Now, if another process is, if we have shamshay, still have doubts, then open our hearts out and go to senior devotees and ask questions. Dadati pratigrihanati guhyam akhyati pruchati. The second line is very important. Open out your heart to a devotee who is more realized. That exchange must always happen. Guhyam means what? Confidential. Confidential exchanges between devotees. Prabhu, I have this doubt. Like that. Or Mataji, I have this doubt. Please help clarify. So that is the process to destroy the doubts. Last, final verse. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So Lord Krishna is giving this final instruction to Arjuna. Now, if those of you who want to know this in great detail, you can read the book Surrender Unto Me by Gurujan Prabhu. He has given a long purport to text 42. But I'll just read out the gist of that very quickly. Okay. So Gurujan Prabhu writes there that work and knowledge combined will free Arjuna from the sinful reaction. So one has, simply knowledge is not enough. And simply working without knowledge is also not enough. So we have to work, and we have to work under transcendental knowledge. Then we will be free from sinful reaction. Like that. So Srila Prabhupada, in this purport, is summarizing the entire chapter in this last verse. Entire chapter is summarized. So we'll just sum up quickly in a minute. We'll end the class. Okay. So the summary, I'm just reading out to you. Okay. But I think because we have done so much over the last 3 or 4 weeks in this chapter, you can easily relate to it. So there are 2 parts to the summary. Part 1 talks about the goal of sacrifice, where it says the goal must be to sacrifice one's material possessions. We saw that in the previous class. Second is to sacrifice in knowledge of the self. Right? To sacrifice material possession and then to sacrifice under knowledge. The very self in bhakti. That's perfect sacrifice. We saw these 2 things in the last. You remember this or no? Forgotten? Yeah. And 2 levels of spiritual knowledge. Who am I? What is my relationship with Lord Krishna? And knowing that the Lord's activities are transcendental. Janma karma cha me divyam. We have seen all these things in this chapter. There is part 2 which says that ignorance can be removed only by Krishna consciousness. Ignorance can be removed only by performing sacrifice under transcendental knowledge. So, the goal of all sacrifices is what? Ultimately, to develop love for God, and which we saw in the previous classes. Again, all this is just being summarized. So, there are different kinds of sacrifices which we have seen in this chapter. We saw sacrifices to demigods, we saw sacrifices to Brahman, right? We saw sacrifices in celibacy, we saw sacrifices in householder life, we saw sacrifices in controlling our senses, sacrifice in practicing mystic yoga, sacrifice in performing various penances, sacrifice in foregoing our material possessions, sacrifice in studying the Vedas, sacrifice in adopting Varnashrama Dharma and following the tenets of Varnashrama Dharma. And the conclusion was what? Above all sacrifices which are based on the conclusion is all the sacrifices which we read are based on regulated action. But within all this, the most important aspect is what? Self-realization. Which is why Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, what does he say? At the end of the rule, you do all these sacrifices. But what is the big goal? Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Because the goal of all sacrifices is to attain loving devotional service of Lord Krishna. And how do we, again, today we saw that how do we attain this transcendental knowledge properly? By studying the Bhagavad Gita under a bona fide spiritual master with seva and pranipat, service and surrender, with submission, pranipat, without deviation. So essentially Srila Prabhupada is just summing up all these points. You can read the Surrender Unto Me, Guruji Prabhu has mentioned in great detail there. Okay? So, what is the conclusion? So, we have come to the end of chapter 4. So, the conclusion of chapter 4 is that transcendental knowledge, right, and its resultant liberation is only possible by faithful, sincere inquiry and service at the feet of a spiritual master. This is the key learning. I will repeat that. Transcendental knowledge and its resultant liberation is only possible by faithful, sincere inquiry and service at the feet of spiritual masters. So that is the conclusion of chapter 4. In the next class, we will discuss chapter 5. In the next class, I will also let you know about your closed book exams. Right? So the closed book exams, I am thinking not to have chapter 5 as a part of that. We will probably have only 4 chapters in the first closed book exam. But I will communicate to your cell leaders and you will receive information through them. And for those people who are under Yogeshwar Govind Prabhu's group, I will probably, and Madhavan groups, I will directly communicate to all of you. The homework for next verse, you can read the first 12 verses of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
When will be the closed book exam?
Closed book exam we are thinking sometime in December, early December, first week of December, most likely.
Last week, we'll have some time during the holidays.
We have time now.
What about those who are not here? What about those who are not here?
They have an option to take the exam earlier. For those sincere, enthusiastic people who are so concerned. Okay, I'll let you know the dates, whenever it is. But the more days you give, it will, so only what will happen is you will start studying that much later. It rarely happens that by giving more time, people are studying more. It rarely happens, trust me. The more you shift, only the date on which you are studying anyway shifts.
So, Prabhu, when will you give those sample questions?
Trial exams.
So I'm going on. We are going for Yatra on the 10th, right? Before that, there is a Saturday which comes.
We are going on Saturday in the afternoon.
We are going Saturday afternoon. So is the next Saturday the only Saturday?
Yes.
Two more Saturdays are there. So the next Saturday, we will do a recap of the four chapters.
3rd November.
No, this is not fair.
3rd November is the
What go?
model question papers.
Camera.
Question banks.
Everything is there.
Trial exams.
No. In that, okay. In that summary, then I will give enough hints. Shall I peel the banana and put inside? Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.